Yeah, we're going to go into purpose today. I love talking about this. I know Kev's passionate about this as well. This has been such an important part of my journey over the last, what would I say? I mean, my healing journey, 10 years, but I mean, particularly around about 2019, I started to really, start to go deep on my purpose, soul mission, after feeling very lost in my career in design and advertising, and took me on a big journey, which I can go into. But before I get underway, if you're joining live, give me a hashtag live. Let us know we're coming loud and clear. If you're watching later on the replay, like most people do, give me a hashtag replay. And whether you're watching live now or on the replay later, do ask any questions as we go. Feel free to share your own experiences, and I'll get on the group later and answer those for you. But yeah, we're going to talk today about the key to creating a life of passion and purpose. As I said, this has been a huge part of my journey in recent years. And I'm interested to hear your journey as well about it, Kev, because I've shared before in these lives about my own story, and going into, first of all, realizing that my purpose was going to be aligned with how I'd healed myself over the last 10 years, and then using that knowledge to serve others on my path as well. And it's been such a rewarding and powerful journey for me. But I thought we could maybe start off with why is it? Because one of the things I noticed in that when people, access my group, I hear a lot in the group is around people not having an idea of what their purpose is and just feeling a bit lost on their journey. In fact, I just had a call with someone before we went live today where they were a bit confused about, I'm feeling a bit lost in life and not really knowing where they're going. And I actually think it can be quite a powerful stage to go into, although it's quite scary and can feel quite painful at times. But if we approach it in the right way, we come out of it the other side, fully, more aligned with our higher self, I would say. But yeah, I'd like to know, it'd be great to hear your perspective on why do we feel like we lose our sense of purpose or a direction? Why is it that we can feel quite lost in our lives?
This is a big conversation that comes up a lot as well. So just for anyone that hasn't caught any of my previous ones, I'm Coach Kevin. I've worked with Mark in many different capacities. I work with hundreds of people around the country on shifting their relationship with multiple areas of life to find more freedom, more flow, less friction, so it can be all go. Now, with this topic of passion and purpose, it's actually like, if you look in history books and things, like the phrase find your passion or follow your passion has been a very recent or new conversation in the Western cultures. If you look at where we've been as a society, a lot of it has been, very, kind of survival based in many respects on, last few hundred years. And then all of a sudden we come to a stage where we industrialize and we have more conveniences and resources met. And all of a sudden now we have a society in which it's like, I'm not some small community of 13 people, and I have one role to do in that small town of 13 people to keep it alive. It's a very different stage that we're standing on. Now, I'm not saying that conversation has never been in here, because if you look into like some of the Eastern philosophies going back, thousands of years, there's talk of something like our dharma, or following into your dharma. People have heard of karma. Okay, great, wonderful. Yeah. Do good things to people, kind of get rewarded in the bank account, not so great on the planet, usually comes back to bite you, right? Those sort of things. Dharma is a little bit different. And I'm not saying it's this one facet of Dharma is going to be around like finding alignment or your purpose. But just think of Dharma as like this flow around our energies behind it. If you're at all into like Ayurvedic medicine, they have things like your doshas. So you have 3 different predominant doshas. You have like Vata, Pitta, Kapha, and I'll go into those in a minute. But if you look at those different doshas, those different energy patterns, okay. Let's just take like Pitta. My significant other, she has more of a Pitta, and it has a very fiery energy to it. Their diet in particular, they may have very specific needs different than some of the others that will help them digestively. So there could be things physiologically. But then if you look at things around like our passion or purpose, there's going to be things that are more in alignment with that energy pattern, that dosha. If I look at Pitta itself, because it's a very fiery, very grounded, very rooted, They get things done, self-starters, they follow through. If I stick that person maybe in the area around making up new creative commercials every day, maybe they would thrive on getting it done, but it might not be in their flow all the time with coming up with a shiny new idea every time about the next jingle or the next commercial. Okay. So it's getting to understand like the energy behind who you are as a person. I worked with a guy that he goes into corporate worlds, and they call him a corporate shaman. And he would set the stage for folks on finding a little bit more alignment around things like luck, this mystical, magical thing. And in a corporate setting, or even in a military setting, it's like they would use the different energies and the different core elements that are behind the person to help move things in their favor for the greater good. And one of the things he would say is at the start, the beginning, one of the foundation core tenets is knowing thyself, which is a very broad term. But if I were to look at any prospective careers or roles or ways in which I give of my gifts, I got to first put the mirror on myself as who am I? What is the makeup of a Kevin, or what's the makeup of a Mark? And that particular makeup isn't necessarily what I do all the time. It's what's the impulse behind why I do. What's the energy behind why I do. And so getting to know, like, am I doing this particular thing that people love me for because it's aligned and true? If it is, it's going to give me energy. It's going to fill me up. It's going to make me feel alive and well. If it's out of alignment, I'm doing it because maybe I'm trying to get approval from somebody else, or trying to fill a void that I don't feel like I'm loved enough, or like some of that may not be my true nature. I'm just doing it because I'm trying to fill a hole. So that I'm going several layers back here. If you're following with me, is knowing thyself is a piece that's coming up, so that we can look at anything that crosses our path. And as we walk the path, more opportunities open up. But as we cross our path, and asking myself, is this like a hand and glove fit? Like when I put the glove on, is this a true aligned fit? Or am I just putting a square peg in a round hole?
Yes.
Thought or feedback on that?
Yeah. And that essentially, I think, is why we can lose track with things like purpose. I look at my 5-year-old, there's no, obviously she couldn't articulate it, but there's no sense of being out of line with purpose. It's just she's living life in the flow and just having fun and joy and doing things that light you up inside. Now I can look back on my own journey and see that there were times where I made choices that were out of alignment. Now I was making those choices from an ego level. I was making choices because I was thinking, well, I need to pay the bills, or everyone else has got a job, so I need to have a job. And the idea of becoming like a spiritual coach or energy healer, I mean, it wasn't even on the table back in the day when I was in school. Right. There wasn't even a subject in school around spirituality or healing. So how on earth would I even have found what I consider to be my purpose now? It just wasn't available. And so I found kind of the next best thing, which was for me was graphic design, which was fine. But when I got into the industry, I realized that it wasn't quite lighting me up, but I kept going with it because I didn't know there was nothing else available. And I kept making choices based on what would increase my earning potential. And all the time I'm making decisions that are out of alignment. I'm making decisions from the head instead of the heart. And so I'm getting further and further out of alignment. My ability to earn money is increasing. My sense of fulfillment and passion is decreasing and decreasing and decreasing. And so I end up in a place where I think a lot of people end up, which is feeling just a bit lost and confused, and feeling like I've got no purpose. What I'd add to that is that now that I have a larger perspective on these things, I think there's no way we can not be on purpose, really. Where we are a soul having a human experience. So in sense that even if you feel that you've got no purpose and completely lost, you're still, it's not like you have no purpose, because you're here to have a human experience. So I would say if anyone's listening, they feel like I've got no purpose, or this, I'm pointless or whatever, that's not true. You're on purpose. You're on your soul mission. But we can get a sense in life, definitely, and I've been here, where we feel very lost and confused, and like I've lost myself somewhere. And that's what it comes down to for me, is because we're making decisions from the head instead of the heart, that we're drifting away from our higher self or authentic self, and we're getting closer to this kind of imaginary or small self that we build up as we go through life. So does that ring true for you, Kev? That's been my experience anyway.
100%. You touched on something that I'm going to dig in deeper on. You said making decisions from the head rather than from the heart or from the ego. And I don't want to vilify those particular things. I think there's been an all-out war on those things. And those are amazing parts to the human experience because they help keep very specific functions alive and well, like reading patterns that might put us at physical threat and danger. Like I don't want to necessarily end my life, a little too short before my soul's had the experience that it's looking for. So it's just looking for patterns maybe more often, and it may make decisions and choices from things that don't serve the highest and best, but we rationalize and we think is going to serve us. So we're talking really fluffy. Let's get a little granular with this for the people. So a little bit about my path. I worked, first job I ever had, I worked for a nursing home for 6 years. So I started when I was in high school, went all the way through college. It was a wonderful role. And it was very much like a healer sort of role, even though the function was, it bounced around a few different jobs. Okay. So I looked at it as my first job. I worked in the kitchen. I worked as a nurse's aide, like just small, menial, sort of entry level positions. And while I could have went through that path, I don't minimize it or make it, I said menial, but it's like I started out and there was definitely a career path that could go along that. Once I got out of college, I felt this societal pressure. Okay. So I go in from the head and then I go, well, I got to start making more money because that's going to make me more attractive. It's going to set off different experiences that I can have. And, this whole chase for the resources thing. Okay. And so then I work in housing for quite a while. And funny enough, I ended up in affordable housing, not particularly because I chose it, just because in 2008 we had a big depression or financial depression here in the United States specifically, but all across the world, and that limited the opportunities that I had available to me. But I took an affordable housing position, and I stayed at that role for another 6 years. So I went from a 6-year role to another 6-year role, moving kind of new job role after new job role as I went along. Now, there's some things about that job I loved. I loved serving the people that we served because it was an underserved population in many respects. It wasn't just the private market and let's make a bunch of money in real estate. It was taking those that were at at 80% of the area median income or below, all the way down to homeless, no job. And that really lit me up in a lot of ways. Like, ooh, I'm actually doing something good in the world. The job role itself, not aligned with overall, even though I stayed at that job for a long time. It was all counting. It was looking at like different funding layers, different finance related pieces that could put a project together. And I got to learn spreadsheets. It actually allowed me to go through something that I had a story around. I had a story that I couldn't do math. Even though I had this accounting role, I kind of bluffed my way into the position because of some things I did in the past. But the idea in my head was I couldn't do math. And this goes to a bigger thing that I wanted to talk about here too, is like sometimes we get resistance points along the path. And if that resistance point is in my alignment, well, do I just quit and go into another direction? Well, if it's truly along my path, it may be that the universe is calling me to expand to the next evolution. Just because the path in front of me is friction doesn't mean that it's not still in my alignment. Right. And so I would, this is where I get out of the head and check in with my heart of like, what is this all for? Is there something that I still feel that I'm exploring or aligned with? So I get to move through the discomfort of learning some things around math and things related to spreadsheets and all that good stuff. So it gave me a new skill set. And seeing a company that in 25 million in revenue was growing at leaps and bounds, we grew hand over fist really over those 6 years, and it gave me the sense that seeing things by the numbers can be the heartbeat, the pulse of an organization in many respects. Because while we may be doing good in the world, if we don't have that pulse, that heartbeat of cash flow coming in, it's a very struggling company. So that was an amazing skill set to have. However, I didn't necessarily feel at year 6 that it was still in my alignment. So I do a slight pivot. I move in the direction of creating a software that supports other affordable housing providers. And I'm all the rage here with riding this wave of software. And it was up and coming at the time where all sorts of money is going into tech. People are, getting acquired left and right. And so I'm here riding this wave of a market, again, trying to chase money. I'm not feeling in my alignment in the other job. I quit, move into this other startup. We get seed funding, and I'm not making sales. I'm not even a salesman to begin with, by the way. This is a whole new skill set for me. So I'm chasing the money and not in my alignment. Doesn't seem to work out. A year and a half later, we closed the doors. Now, from there, I'd met a few people just at the end. And we started another software company from there. Again, I'm still trying to force a path going along with the software. And what I found is I was still in a sales role, and it just wasn't in my alignment. It wasn't working. We were making money on the second software. However, I was burnt out, working 80 hours a week, stressed out. We were growing, but I was definitely not in alignment. And my energy was low. When I woke up in the morning thinking about work, I was frustrated. It's like, oh, here we go again, another packed calendar day. I was struggling with my relationships, both intimately and just with friends. So this is a great example of where, like, checking in with myself of is there resistance in front of me and I'm aligned with it? Not there. Wasn't feeling that I was doing that much good in the world. I was just trying to chase an amazing exit. Now, fortunately, along the path, doors open. This is called the corridor principle, where if you go along the path, it's almost like Brian Tracy coined this. It's if I'm looking down a hallway, like looking down a path, there's going to be a little tiny light at the end, and there's going to be these walls that go all the way down towards that light at the end. And as I walk down the path, the walls farther down start to become more in view. And as they open up, I can look left, I can look right, and all of a sudden there might be a door that I couldn't see at the vantage point when I was first starting up because everything blended so far down. And if I open that door, that could lead to another corridor. And we get this maze, this series of things that we can walk along that we never knew we would go on until we start the path. So I would agree here that as you move along the path, like with Mark, your journey and such, like you never would have guessed you'd be in this role right now. You couldn't have because you couldn't see it from that vantage point. And now what's interesting is also other things that opened up. Maybe you didn't have the internet and Zoom supporting these sort of conversations in the way it was before. Like new technology came around, new advances, new discoveries. So the universe architects its way towards things in your alignment as well as you walk the path. I'm not saying all of the internet came around because of Mark, but it certainly didn't hurt. And when I look at walking that path, I got to be open to when an opportunity comes. And to filter it and see, like, does this feel in alignment from the heart or from another center? Exactly. So I'm going to talk about that for a minute. When I was walking this path with this second software, making money, working 80 hours a week, someone taps me on the shoulder and says, "Hey, Kevin, I see you're doing really good there. I'm struggling with online marketing. Could you give me a few tips?" Now, this guy was a podcaster, good friend of mine. I said, well, if I was in your shoes, here's what I would do. And I list a bunch of different things that was working for us. He went off, did it, comes back. Darn, Kevin, that worked. I wouldn't have guessed, didn't believe it. All of a sudden, things had changed around for him. He refers another friend. Friend comes to me. I hop on the phone, give him a few things. And the series kept coming where more and more podcasters kept tapping me on the shoulder through just referral. People are like, you got to go talk to Kevin. And I was like, I'm working 80 hours a week. I either got to tell these guys to get out of here, or I sat with it. I was like, well, maybe I'll just see if this is worth paying money for. Like somebody would actually pay money to be supported around podcast advertising. So I made an offer to one of those that had me on the shoulder, thinking that he would say no and he would just buzz off. This was my idea of giving you like a screw you offer. I'm like, it'll be this big dollar amount. And I had this gut feeling like he's probably going to say no. And he says yes. I was like, oh shoot. Well, now I have an 80-hour a week job and a client on the side to do consulting work around marketing. And what I didn't realize is in that moment, I was starting a path thinking that I was closing a door and it opened one. And I could have done that job, did well for that client and kept on the path I was on. But as soon as I dove into it, I felt into it. I was like, I'm doing the same work, different end result, different type of person I'm working with. And it feels like it gives me energy. Same work. Whereas the other job, 80 hours a week, same work, I feel drained. Great example of where when you tap in, it's like, does this feed my energy in some way? Now, that doesn't mean I couldn't be tired at the end of the day. How I start the day, what I feel like during the day. Okay. At the end of it, do I feel like it's worth it, even if I had a tough day? Those are some things I would tap into. And I'm getting out of here. I feel into the body.
Yes.
Like, do I care about the people we're serving? Is the impact making sense to me? Do I feel like even if the impact isn't making sense to me, I'm developing or growing as a person that could serve later? That's another thing. Like I look back at roles I've done in the past. Maybe I wasn't, quote unquote, in my alignment. It was my highest purpose. What if it was simply developing me so that I could find it? I have now tools, resources, and abilities that I could use later. I'll give you a couple of book recommendations in here. Cal Newport's book, Deep Work, phenomenal on this subject. Very pragmatic, very practical approach on this. And he's going to talk about how our level of mastery can dictate whether somebody refers to their work as meaningful, on purpose, aligned, simply because they've allowed themselves to get higher up the rung of ladders of skills, abilities, experience that's necessary to play at a high level. So if I was just starting basketball, looking to become an NBA player, I would think I suck. I'm not in alignment because I'm just starting out. I'm terrible. Not only that, but I'm, 38 and I feel old, washed up, that I never have a shot, right? We have all these different filters of how we perceive based on society as well. Whereas somebody that's playing in the NBA probably feels aligned, on purpose, on fire. And it's because they've put in the work to develop a certain level of mastery. What you don't see is everything that came before it. Okay. And we can align that with so many different areas that once you get to a level of mastery, it's far easier to feel in flow and alignment. Okay.
Yes.
Now I'm going to back off and hand the mic back to Mark, but what I'm trying to see is, am I tapping into, is this for the greater good or for development of myself so that I can go deeper into what my journey will be later? It's hard to see that later. Mark, thoughts on that?
Yeah, that passion is really important though. Because when I think about it, what you're saying there, graphic design and advertising, because I wasn't really passionate about it, there wasn't that drive to master it or to really excel in that field, because it wasn't in alignment for it. It wasn't my true passion. Whereas what I'm doing now, healing and spiritual coaching, because I love it, because I'm passionate about it, but I do it every day anyway, because I love the work and it's been so impactful for me. And so mastering it is just easy for me because it's so in alignment for me. It's so in flow, whereas in graphic design and advertising, because I wasn't passionate about it, there wasn't that push to master it. And so as a result, I could have living at it, but I wasn't excelling at it. Something else that came up for me is that I think there's two ways when it comes to then having a job or a career, because it doesn't mean you have to necessarily, someone listening to this now thinks, I need to pack in my career because it's out of alignment. My job because it's out of alignment. For me, there's two ways. Either your job or your career could be fully aligned with your passion or your purpose. That's great. I don't know. You could be a graphic designer and you absolutely love it and it's your passion and that is your purpose, or a marine biologist or a doctor, whatever it is. Or it could be that you've got a job, a career that doesn't feel in alignment, but it's supporting you in terms of your soul mission or your purpose. So for example, for me, that's been the case. I've had this job in graphic design, advertising. Okay, that's not my greatest passion, but it has been a wonderful support for me while I've built something that is alignment with my soul mission and purpose, which has been this business as I've slowly built it along the years. And so in a sense, instead of and we talked about this in the past, I know, instead of the job being like a drain on my energy, which it was before, it's become something that I'm incredibly grateful for, because it's supporting me in my soul mission, and my ability to really serve others in this lifetime. So yeah, I just want to make that clear, because there would have been a time where I felt like I'm just going to jack in graphic design and, find something else. But actually, it's really important. Something like a job for me, it doesn't have to be a drain. It can be something we're incredibly grateful for, as it supports us financially as we align closer with our purpose, whatever that might be, our unique way of serving others in this lifetime. The one final thing I wanted to say is that, yes, it is something that takes dedication and patience. I mean, I remember when I've realized I went freelance, and I thought freelance was going to be the answer for me in terms of my passion for graphic design. It wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized then that, like, I'm never going to find it in advertising graphic design. And so I had a conscious desire to find out what my higher purpose might be, which I think is where it all starts. I think if you have that desire, the universe is going to conspire to help you on the path. Now, I had two options. I remember I had two options available to me. I was either going to go down the Kriya Yoga path with Paramahansa Yogananda, or weirdly, I saw this ad on YouTube one day for a bit similar to what you were talking about, that's advertised helping people create a digital business. And I was like, you might think, oh, on the spiritual path, well, obviously you're going to go down the Kriya Yogananda, but this advert just really hit a chord in me. It just hit me very deeply for whatever reason. Talked about creating a digital business around your passions. Anyway, I chose that route, and there's no way I could have known where it would have led me to. But now it all makes sense because, first of all, I learned about online marketing and how to create a digital business. Then I realized beyond that, I met these coaches that we know that showed me the energy work that we practice today. Went down the whole mindset route as well, and it all kind of fit together in the end. I created my own online digital business around helping people to heal and awaken. And who knows what would have happened if I went down the Kriya Yoga path. But I just followed my heart in that instance. And even though my head was saying, well, obviously go down the Kriya Yoga path and heal yourself, I followed my heart, which was saying, learn online marketing. And now it all fits together. Now I realize, okay, I get it. Because, this was going to lead me on to creating this business that really feels alignment and I'm truly passionate about. So exactly what you said, just trust the feelings with this. I always say to people, if it lights you up inside, and it takes a bit of work to get back in touch with the felt sense. For I think a lot of people are very blocked off from it. But generally, if you can drop awareness into that center of the chest and just feel, if it feels open and expansive, then that is aligned with your higher self. If it feels closed and constricted, then that's probably coming from perhaps more of an ego desire. And like you said, nothing wrong with ego desires, but ultimately, if we're talking about passion and purpose, then you want to be following the desires of the soul or the higher self, which connects more through the heart rather than the head.
This is such an interesting piece. I'm going to touch on this. So you go down this path of knowing thyself, getting to know thyself, and you're starting to get these inklings of, maybe I need to go in this direction with like Yogananda and spiritual. And then all of a sudden something more, I don't know, maybe contemporary or pragmatic or something pops up in front of you. Let's do online marketing, create an online business, and something hits inside. Now you could have this argument for days in your head and your heart going, do I really want to do this? Right? Excuse me. Pollen in the springtime. With that conversation, here's what many people will come to is they'll go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And it's exhausting to go, do I do this? Do I not do this? Is this right for me? Is this not right for me? Fortunately, you went that path, not even knowing, like the corridor principle, not even knowing where it would lead you.
No.
Interesting how it's a direct alignment when you look at skills to develop for the type of work that you're doing. And then it magically connects you, not even through necessarily work, but it connects you into a network that then leads you on a completely aligned path. Yeah. So the universe has a funny way of just like finding downstream, like even if you take a little ripple off the stream, but you're right back into it, just trust it's coming back. Now, how you sit with it. Now, first I'm going to give the second book recommendation to close the loop on some people that wondered when I said a couple of books, what the other one is. Discover Your Dharma. This is a great book on looking at some of the more Eastern philosophy view on this, of looking at some of the energies behind it and some of those pieces. And they have a little quiz that you can go through to get maybe some more of the essence behind a person They're not going to say, okay, you're meant to be a firefighter per se. They might give you, like for me, mine came out as like a teacher. Well, there's many ways that could show up. I just happen to be now in alignment around coaching. Before, when I was teaching, actually, funny enough, I was giving more consulting or feedback around the marketing. Both felt aligned at the time. But this is a great segue into like how like listening into it can be really helpful, because I got this, this podcast marketing company that I started to build. I moved in fully into that direction. It was growing like gangbusters, and it went like that for several years. And then all of a sudden, one of the clients was, really, they were starting a coaching company, and they were kind of at a stage where they needed coaches. And he knew I had done a lot of personal development, tapped me on the shoulder and said, Kevin, I would love to see you step in and support this as we're getting it going. Would you be willing to coach and come in and share a little bit of some of your insights? And it was like an open door that when I felt into it, I had this back and forth. I was like, wait a minute, I'm growing this. I have my identity around it. It feels very aligned, and this is what I'm doing. And I had this really back and forth. If I were to go from the head, I would have said, doesn't make sense. I need to keep forging this path. And I had to drop in with it. Now, especially with two directions, okay, you're going to feel this tug of war. When you have multiple directions, it can feel very lost. So you might have 3 or 4 or 5 options in front of you or more. Okay, that can feel really uncomfortable. What I like to do is a little exercises. I like to have people close their eyes and imagine that they're on an open desert plain. Okay. Dark nights, starry skies. Okay. It's maybe warm enough that you could wear a t-shirt out there in the desert, but it's at night. Okay. And you're just walking around with your feet on the sand. And as you stop for a moment and you look up at those stars, a picture opens up. Okay. And as you watch that sky open up with that picture, it's you. And I would have you put each option in front of you one at a time as you do this. So the first option that comes to you. So you just pick one and put that out there in the sky. Okay. And you see yourself in the future, a year, maybe 2 years. Now the picture flips, it's 5 years. Where am I at in 5 years down the road with this? How does it feel? How does it move? What comes up for me? What am I thinking about with this work in that picture? How does it feel in the body with the energy when I watch myself several years out? Now, if it's something that maybe it's an open door, like going to a retreat or a festival. Okay. I might picture what that one-time event is and what that feels like with my eyes closed. I do that. And then I ask a very specific question, like, does this path feel aligned? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to rise up on the balls of my feet, like the toes and the balls of my feet. Okay. And I feel into, does this feel aligned? And as I come back down on my heels, I'll watch to see, am I leaning back? And I almost have to catch myself as I'm leaning back down on those heels. Or am I leaning a bit forward as I come back down on those heels? Okay. This is a bit of a muscle testing, like exercise, if anyone's familiar with muscle testing. It's getting the nervous system to give me feedback of what's going on.
Does he physically do this? Or is this kind of visual?
Yep. So I would get up out of my chair. I would rise up and come back down on my heels as I have that picture, and I'm feeling into that picture for a while. Okay. Now it's hard to stand on your toes for a little bit. So I wouldn't want to sit and do that for 30 minutes, but it's very simple. It's something that can take 5 minutes at the most, probably a couple minutes of like being out there in the image. And as I rise up and I feel into it, only be there for, maybe 30 seconds at most. And as I come down on the heels, I just notice, am I leaning back or am I kind of leaning into it? Am I leaning forward? That'll give me more feedback. Is it an ultimatum? Not necessarily, but it gives me more feedback beyond just what the head's thinking because of how I feel into that aligned future, or perhaps maybe misaligned future because I'm ego ego tripping what I think it's going to experience. So that's been a really helpful one. I've used that for things like, do I say yes? Maybe like I've said yes to personal development tracks or paths because of that. Where I was like, wow, this is a lot of money. I'm not really sure. Like, is this going to put
money's
me on?
A big one. Yeah,
that's an easy one for the ego to come in and go like, I don't know, safety, scarcity, and it's well, if I feel into it, what feels aligned? Is this a heck yes, or is this just I'm lost and I'm just latching on to anything that's in front of me?
One thing I would say with that is that I've learned is to not make decisions from like a lower vibration energy. Like if I am feeling whatever, lost or confused or sad or whatever it might be, I don't tend to make decisions, or tired is a big one. No, I make no decisions or actions from in the evening because you're much more aligned in the morning energetically. So I tend to not make any decisions when I know I'm in a low vibration. If I know I'm in a low vibration, I focus on the inside, purely focus on my feeling through what's happening, my healing. When I'm feeling more aligned, for me, this time between 10 and 2 is like I call my golden hours in the day. This is the time when I tend to take what I call aligned action, make big decisions. For example, I'm thinking about possibly attending a retreat like you talked about there in South America. When I'm in a low vibration, I'm tired in the evenings. There's a lot of fear in there, and it's the mind is trying to hold, not so sure. But I know when I'm energized, I'm at my best, and I feel into it, and it feels really good. Then that's when I'll make the decision and take the action from. When I'm feeling a low vibration or tired in the evenings, when I'll focus mainly on the inner work, the healing work, and I'm not so inclined to take actions or make this big decisions from that act. Another way to create alignment in our lives, just look at where you're sourcing, what energy is sourcing the action, what's the energy behind the action, because ultimately that is you're making decisions ultimately always from a low vibration energy. You're just going to get that back. It's like a snowball. If you're making decisions, taking actions from a high vibration energy, then that's going to be reflected back to you. You're going to create a life aligned with that higher energy. So that's another good way I found of creating an aligned life.
Yeah, I love that. Just always tapping in with what's the energy behind it. And that goes with anything. I mean, it's like, what am I about to say to my significant other? Or why am I doing this at work? Or for a friend? Is this for me, or is this really for their? It's like checking in with that is such a great compass.
Yeah. Yes. Well, we'll bring this one to a close soon because Kev's got to go on with his day. I've got a call coming up, but I think I wanted to say that's really helpful for me as we go on this path towards our passion and purpose. There's gonna be multiple challenges and blocks that come up along the way, particularly if you went down the path I went to, which creating your own business, imposter syndrome, constant self-doubts about yourself, stepping out and doing lives like this. So what I found really helpful that I talked about there is to be making my own healing and well-being a priority, which is why this energetic healing work, and Kevin introduced it with his clients as well, because I've worked with Kevin, sitting with others in co-resonance, feeling through what's happening, processing these energetic blocks as they come up. That's the real powerful thing about the journey, is that these blocks, these limiting beliefs will come to the surface. If we know how to approach them, we know how to feel into them with support, we can move through them and continue on the journey and not get stuck and blocked off on the way. Because that's the real powerful thing about the journey is these limiting beliefs come up, these traumas come up, we sit with them with others, with support, we process them, and we can move forward. If we're not focusing on the energetic healing work alongside it, we can get stuck and blocked along the way, and we can stop us in our tracks. So it's the combination of the aligned action and the inner healing work for me. I guess you'd agree with that as well, Kev. I know it's a big part of your coaching as well.
Yeah, 1000%.